Hi, my name's Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to my Beekeeping Basics. So this is going to be the very first of a series of videos dedicated to microscopy and specifically with beekeeping in mind. And I thought that I would start by just running through my intentions for what I'm going to do and then give you an overview of the equipment that I use. I started with a microscope in beekeeping about 4 or 5 years ago and sadly put it away in the cupboard for a short while. But before I did, I undertook the British Beekeeping Association microscopy module and passed that. So have been through a process of learning how to use the microscope and how to produce pollen slides and bee part slides, and generally just get a feel for the very basics in the use of a microscope. And it's that I would like to share with you. So what I intend to do is to just go through step by step how I would produce some pollen slides, talk a little bit about the microscopes that I use, show you the equipment that I use, and hopefully we can muddle through together. And if you have any comments, any suggestions, any improvements on what I'm doing, then please do feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And hopefully together we can end up with some good looking slides that have both been fun and fascinating to produce. Okay, so before we get cracking, I just checked my BBKA certificate and it's dated 2010, so it looks as if I started beekeeping microscopy approximately 7-ish years ago. So looks like the dust will have gathered on the microscope a little bit more than I'd anticipated. Okay, so before we get started and take a look at the equipment on the table here, I just wanted to acknowledge the help that I received all those years ago when I was first getting into microscopy for beekeeping. I attended a local group called the Iceni Microscopy Study Group, and they run courses quite close to Norwich, so it was quite convenient for me. But there are people within the group that come from many miles away, and I would certainly recommend looking them up if you're interested in taking your microscopy further. But in particular, a couple of guys in the group, Lewis Woolnough, who ran the beekeeping microscopy course and taught me all of the basics, taught us about how light goes through a microscope and how to produce a good clear image through the microscope, which is a fundamental aspect of microscopy, and also how to produce pollen slides. And then following that course, a very knowledgeable guy by the name of Peter Sunderland took me under his wing and showed me how to go on and produce high quality pollen slides that were of a good enough quality for me to pass the BBKA assessment. Having said that, everyone in the group were always very helpful, very friendly, and you could always ask a question. So if you're interested in getting involved, I know that they're running some courses, and I see in the BBKA that there are courses in November and again February of next year that Lewis is running. So I'll post some details below so that if you're interested you can contact them and hopefully get onto one of the courses. Okay, so this is some of the equipment that I've got. I've literally just unpackaged it all from a little toolbox that I've got, and I just wanted to lay it out to show you the kind of things that I've got. So here are the slides that I created to pass the BBKA microscopy assessment, and we've got, okay, so these are my microscope slides, a pestle and mortar for when we're checking on nosema in bees, and this is just some cleaning fluid, a range of stains, various paintbrushes and pencils and the like, cover glasses to go over the samples once I've created them, a little tool pouch, and most of this came as a set. So you can see there's quite a range of different bits and pieces here, different tools. So you would buy that as a complete kit, and I'll post some links. I think most of this came from a company called Brunel Microscopes. I'm not being sponsored by anybody. These are all items that I've purchased. It'd be very nice to be sponsored by somebody, because I wouldn't mind an upgrade in the microscopes. So these are some samples. This one in particular is some sunflower pollen that I took from some sunflowers that are on the allotment in the summer. I thought it would be quite nice to have a look at those. And I've got two microscopes here. This is the high-powered microscope and the low-powered microscope, or a dissecting microscope. And this beast here with the bendy arms is a light, and you can use this to illuminate anything that you've got perhaps on your dissecting microscope, and you can adjust the amount of light. It's quite an old one, got it off eBay quite cheaply, and that's a really good resource if you're looking to start and you haven't got any equipment already. But I'll just take a look at some of the microscopes that are available, and show you that actually you can start with a nice setup that's really affordable. So we'll have a look at the microscopes in a little bit more detail. Okay, so this is just a quick look at the roll-up tool pouch that I've got. One of the things that is very useful are a wide range of different types of tweezers and forceps for handling slides and samples. And then you've got these small pointed tools that allow you to tease things apart. Scissors of different types are always useful, and then here we've got a scalpel with a non-sterile blade, and that's really useful for opening up plants and bee parts. So you can buy this as a complete set, maybe not with all of this equipment, but I've added to it as we've gone on, and that's the best way to move forward. Buy a basic set and then gradually add to it over a period of time. You keep the cost down, and you can add to the kit as you move forward. Okay, so this is my high-powered microscope. It's called a researcher microscope from a company called Apex Microscopes, and it's a very affordable piece of equipment. It's got 4 objective eyepieces on it, which allow you to magnify an image up to 1,000 times. It has a light source at the bottom, and it's on a nice heavy plinth, simple on-off switch. But this has been really the basis of all of the work that I've done in my microscope slides, and it's certainly adequate for my needs. There are others. I think this one was around the £200 to £250 mark, but there are microscopes out there that are cheaper than that, and I'll show you some examples shortly. But this has been a great microscope. It also has the ability, if I can show you, to remove the eyepiece so that I can attach my camera, and what we'll do as we move forward is attach the camera. Sometimes you can have what's called a trinocular microscope, and then you don't have to remove the eyepiece. But what we'll do for now is we'll get some images by removing that, and hopefully at some point in the future I'll be able to get a trinocular microscope. The eyepiece adjusts to the width of your eyes, and we'll go through setting up the microscope probably in the next video. Okay, so this is the low powered or dissecting microscope. It's just a 2x magnification, so it's a much simpler affair, but this is the microscope that you probably do most of your preparatory work in preparing pollen and bee parts ready for mounting. So this is quite a useful microscope to have. This one is from a company called Brunel Microscopes, and I think this model is called the DM2. So finally, for this section, I thought I'd just show you some of the slides that I've made. So when we complete the slide, we what's called ring the slide cover slip so that it seals the sample beneath it, and then put the details of what it is. So I'll pop a couple of these onto the microscope and just get them in focus, and then we'll record some video. Okay, so this is the setup that I've got. So this is the microscope. We've got a slide already in, and this is where the camera is going to be attached to, and that's the head of the microscope that I've just taken off. So I'm going to hook up the camera now to the microscope, and then we'll have a look down and see what we can see. Okay, so we've got the slide in place, and I'm just going to focus it. There we are. There's some pollen grains. So these are rosemary pollen grains, and this is using the 10 times magnification objective lens. So what I'll do is I'll switch to the next lens, which is 40 times, and we'll see what we can see. And there you can see some of the rosemary pollen grains. I'm just going to move the slide slightly to see if we can find a couple of other. There's a nice looking grain of pollen. Okay, so here's a nice cluster of dandelion just to finish off, and you can see that they are a completely different shape and structure to the rosemary, and this is part of the fascination for me, to be able to take some pollen from the beehive and to identify it. Okay, so that's it for this first session. Just a brief introduction to the equipment that I have and hopefully what we're going to do moving forward. So in the next session we'll take a look at the microscope in more depth and have a look at how light travels through the microscope to produce an image for us. I hope you found that interesting. Please hit the like button and share it if you wouldn't mind, and we'll catch up in the next video. If you haven't already subscribed, please do hit the subscribe button. We're going to produce lots more videos in the coming months, and we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.